Hello and welcome to Africa Today. I am Mike Okwoche. Echoes of history brings to mind October the 1st, 1960, when many gathered before a television screen with flickering black and white images just to watch the hoisting of the Nigerian flag after the Union Jack was lowered. Now, hundreds of people went wild in street jubilation, while school children held up small green, white, green flags with high hopes for the nation and the future. More than 5 decades ago, a country conceived in peace and unity was born, at a time when breaking out of the shackles of colonialism was becoming a widespread reality for Africa. What are your thoughts on Nigeria 54 years after independence? You can join the conversation and share with us on Twitter at TVC Africa Today. We'll take a report now, and Africa Today will continue. Welcome on board.
Nigeria gained her independence on Saturday, the 1st of October 1960, amidst joy and excitement. Like the birth of every new child, she was celebrated with great zeal and festivity, and everyone looked forward to her being a leading light. With an initial population of about 55 million people in the 1963 census, Nigeria has grown in the last 54 years to a population of more than 170 million people. Since independence, Nigeria has struggled with various forces to maintain our freedom, unity and cohesiveness. 54 years down the line, some of our dreams may remain yet unattained. But she's not alone. Like Nigeria, others were born on that great day and may share the same struggles. Akinsomi Babatunde is a secondary school teacher who shares Nigeria's birthday. He reveals that like Nigeria, he has some unfulfilled dreams.
Initially, I was hoping to work in any of the organization, but as fate will find it, have it, I see that I look for work here, I search for a job there, there is no way.
But on the flip side, Akinsomi says he has been able to achieve some things in life. Nigerians, however, share diverse opinions on whether Nigeria has in her 54 years attained her set goals. Many still believe she can do better, as this birthday mate hands out his advice.
Greatest advice is that whoever that is aspiring to manage the resources must have the fear of God. I can say that the major problem we are having in this country as regards the poor management is no fear. People do not have the fear of God, and that fear is based on love.
As Nigeria continues to grow in age, expectations of Nigerians also continue to rise, hoping for a better tomorrow.
Nigeria declared independence from Britain in 1960, and 3 years later, the country became a republic. Since then, it has been a cycle of mixed fortunes for a country where economic growth is said to be inversely proportional to human development. Joining us on Africa Today, we have Professor Chris Nwokobia, a lawyer, political analyst, and presidential candidate at 2011 general elections in Nigeria. You're welcome to Africa Today.
My pleasure to be here.
It's good to see you. And on Skype in Ghana, we have Dr. Dele Momodu, publisher of Vision magazine and also a presidential candidate at the 2011 general elections in Nigeria. Dr. Dele Momodu, you're welcome to Africa Today.
Good evening and happy birthday, Nigeria.
You're welcome. All right, let's start from the studio. 54 years and counting. What has changed between that day, that morning, when everyone was looking forward to a wonderful, bright future for Nigeria, and right now as we're sitting?
What has changed? With a strong sense of emotions and commitment to the fact that for most Nigerians, what we have 14 years after, blighted hopes, a checkered history. What has changed was that about that period we had about 55 million Nigerians, and 54 years after we have about 170 million Nigerians. What has changed is the fact that we had young men and women who had high hopes, great hopes, monumental confidence that when the Union Jack was lowered and the green, white, green hoisted, that a country that will give strong sense of respect, a strong sense of belonging, and great hopes for Africa and indeed the black man was born. And 54 years after, that hope is in tatters. 54 years after, we have a cycle of leadership that is not responsible and responsive to the demands and the aspirations of the people. We have an era of political jobbing that rubbishes everything that true democracy should count and stand for. 54 years after, Nigerians will rather continue with the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Every now and then, when you ask government to do right and deliver on the dividends of democracy, people will say that you're too critical. Give democracy a chance. 54 years after, people will say, let's go it easy, take it slow. And I was born with the greatest sense of respect about 11 years after independence. And if after 43 years, my parents look up to me, people look up to me, and the other trajectory, or conversely, we have a nation that is 54 years old and is more of a toddler. We have a nation that was born, like your opening remark, in peace and hopes. And then after 54 years, we have a country that is at war within. Okay. We have a country where some elements are saying that they don't want Western education, whereas the instruments of their war and weaponry, the instruments of their warfare against the Nigerian nation are from Western forces and angles. And I do sincerely think that beyond the fact that we celebrate today the unity, the continued coexistence of disparate people and variegated thoughts, beyond that, beyond the fact that we're still one nation, there is so much. It's like Jomo Kenyatta told Kenyans, it is not yet Uhuru. And I do sincerely believe that there is a lot expected of us after 54 years. After 54 years, we still do not have constant power. After 54 years, our educational system is still in tatters. We have strikes that lapses for 7 months, 1 year. Okay. We have is a litany, almost an interminable litany of the absurd.
We'll come back to this because I like you are itemizing these issues, and I guess it is pointing us towards the realities of what's on ground now. But let's engage Dele Momodu right here, joining us on Skype. Dele Momodu is a publisher of Vision magazine. He's joining us from Ghana. Well, it's good to have you join us. Let me ask you, not so many Nigerians are very satisfied with how things are, but let me ask, where did Nigeria get it wrong after independence?
Well, I did send out a tweet this morning in which I said, today I will be positive for once. I'm going to take a different approach. Okay. Yes, with all this litany of woes, Nigeria has a lot to be thankful for. Okay. And that is my approach today. I write every Saturday in a newspaper called This Day, and I lament like Jeremiah. But today is a day of celebration. So I will let my brother reel out those woes that have befalling us, unfortunately. But then I want us to look at the positive side. Today, wherever you go on the surface of the earth, Nigerians are doing great things. I mean, the first Nobel laureate for literature, Wole Soyinka, is a Nigerian. Everybody talks about things fall apart. Chinua Achebe is a Nigerian. We have so many bright writers, Chimamanda, Ben Okri, Buche, Mechita, world-class writers. We have scientists all over the world. Go to any bank, be it in Europe or in America, there's a Nigerian somewhere. Go to the biggest hospitals in the world, you'll find our medical practitioners, doctors, pharmacists, nurses, matrons, and so on and so forth. The only thing that is lacking back home is good leadership. Our economy may not be what it is supposed to be, but we still have one of the biggest in the world. So which means after all these problems, all we need to hope for is that when tomorrow comes, we will have a leader who can harness our great potentials.
All right.
There is Yes.
It's good you give us that the picture, the picture of hope, as the case may be. But let me ask, from the minds of the founding fathers of independence of Nigeria, how far apart do you think Nigeria is from the vision the founding fathers had at the time?
Oh, we're definitely very far from it, but we won't give up. Don't forget that our democracy did not live long before it was truncated by military coups. And since then, it's been one coup after the other. This is probably the longest period we've had without any military intervention. And we must make it work. Because some of us were jailed, some people were killed, some of us ran into exile, and yet we have not changed much, and our expectations have not been met. So, but we must make it work. It's like a husband and wife, when they say till death do us part. It means there are bound to be problems along the way, but those problems must be tackled, and must be tackled by all of us. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be tackled by President Jonathan alone. It's not going to be tackled by the governors or the ministers. You and I must make up our minds that we want to make this union work.
Okay.
Because
all right.
The alternative is not going to be palatable.
All right, Dede Momodu, we'll come back to you on this. Now, he's giving us a picture of hope. Hope in Nigeria, hope in the future, hope in what we have, and so on. But let's go back to history. I was trying to pinpoint some things. Our leaders were very visionary. They were able to give us independence, or fight and struggle for independence at the time it came. But if we have to take example from how they went about relating with each other and so on, do you think our leaders were a good example, or the founding fathers rather, were a good example when it comes to relating with each other, sitting down to fashion a way forward for the country?
With the issues, as it were, after the Berlin Conference of 1885-86, when African continent was battered amongst the whites, there were issues that came up. We came up to 1900, 1914, the amalgamation of the North and South protectorates into a country called Nigeria. Bernard Shaw, the mistress who later became the wife of Lord Lugard, named us. And then the struggle for independence was, it was a movement. I think that until independence, within the precincts of what obtained then, you have the predominantly Muslim North and then the predominantly Christian South. And with those variegated issues of creed and clan, I think that we were able to manage it sizably to work towards independence. Much as the initial motions for independence fell because the North felt that they weren't ready. Nahara was shouted down. We remember Remi Fani Kayode and co. And then eventually in 1957, the South got independence and the North came along in 1959. And in that Saturday morning, the Union Jack went down and the green, white, green was hoisted. A country was born. I want to say with the greatest sense of respect that that hope that we had then is not dead yet. I want us to understand that historically, you must situate your story properly and then carry on from there. Because if you do not identify these interminable woes, you may not be able to learn from those mistakes. But beyond that, my dear brother Dele, who of course was a colleague in the 2011 presidential election, candidacy against Jonathan. He was the NCP candidate, whilst I was a Liberal Democratic Party candidate. We were able to adumbrate hope in our manifestos. We stood up. I still believe in that hope. I believe that hope, like Chief Obafemi Awolowo said, is the last milk in the human breast. Okay. But you cannot situate that hope away from the fact that, we have the strongest people in the world. We have people who are visionary. We have strong people who are optimistic. Because we're not for that optimism. We're not for that strength of character. A highly progressive world will hold us to ridicule and scorn. Let me tell you why. In 1971, Malaysia came down here for palm seedlings. Indonesia came here. And those are part of the Asian tigers that we're talking about today.
Okay.
Today,
let's go on a break. We'll come back before you go on this. Now, although a number of African nations achieved colonial freedom by simply demanding for it, others gained independence after many years of a bloody struggle. But how well has Africa maximized the potentials of its political and economic liberty? We'll go on a quick break, and Africa Today will continue. Stay with us. All right, apart from Nigeria, countries like Guinea, Lesotho, Uganda and Zambia will be celebrating and reflecting on the essence of independence in the days to come. And we still have on Skype Dr. Dele Momodu, publisher of Vision magazine, joining us from Ghana. Now, let me ask Dele Momodu, Africa, you painted a picture of hope for Nigeria, hope for Africa and so on. But between the potentials Nigeria has as a country in its people and resources, why has it become so difficult to translate that potentials into prosperity for its people?
Well, as I said, it's still a leadership problem. One of the reasons I joined the race in 2011 was because I was tired of complaining and lamenting permanently without doing something about it. Of course, I discovered what I had always known, that Nigerians were their own worst enemies. We all complain, we all grumble, but at the end of the day, I liken it to a beauty contest. You are complaining that Miss Nigeria is ugly, and you have a pretty daughter at home, and you're not going to allow your daughter to go out there and compete. You are bound to have problems. So we came out, but we were rejected. I mean, that's the blunt way to put it.
That's right.
But I believe a day will come. It's a gradual process. To borrow a very popular cliche, Rome was not built in a day. I believe that we're making slow but steady progress. Against all odds, Nigeria will overcome the leadership problem. Because as individuals, if you look at the private sector, I don't see anybody who can beat Nigerians anywhere in the world. Whether in banking, whether even in music, we're going global. In Nollywood, everybody's talking about Nigeria. The day we get that one man, and that is why when people ask me, why do you want to be a president? Why not a senator? I say, Nigeria is only searching for that one man. If you like, call him a benevolent dictator. If you like, call him a Democrat, whatever you want to call him, until we find that one man, nothing is going to change. Is that just one man? I will continue to say it, we must find him urgently, and then things will change.
But how close do you think we are to finding that one man?
It's a 50-50 chance for us in the next election. I will say it bluntly, if APC puts its house in order, and we can all sacrifice our personal ambition, trust me, we're closer than you think.
Okay, you like to make...
No, I totally agree with Dele on that, because the politics of the now, the jangling discord of our nation, the crises and conflicts, the problems in the Northeast, the restiveness in the South, and the criminalities that you have everywhere. Paraphrases what Fela said, this uprising will bring out, but I rather use the word the best in us than the beast in us. I ultimately believe that all this, more than ever before, raising questions of nationhood, all these are more than ever before nudging us closer to that point where we would say we would not settle for stomach infrastructure that will come after every 4 years. We will decide and collectively aggregate at the point where our demands will be for a leader who cares and who is indeed passionate about where Nigeria is headed. It is not about the perfunctoriness of government spokespersons. It is not about the perfidy that we see on our socio-political amphitheater. It is about strong demand for a leader who truly cares, a leader who's passionate about where this country must be, and a leader who realizes that Nigerians are gifted and awesome people who, armed with effective patriotic verve and favor, that we can transform not only this country but indeed Africa, and make the black man
You just talked
proud.
about patriotism. Apart from the issues of leadership we're talking about, Nigerians themselves, from your assessment, how patriotic are Nigerians?
Oh, it's very evident. I know that you did assess the mood swing and the fervor in the socio-political space today. You did observe, apart from the fact that we lost our march past and the dance troops of October 1st, everywhere in this country, I'm decked in green, white, green colors. Everywhere in this country, I saw people dancing, and I said, oh, you can't have a more believing, a more patriotic people. But you see, where we have a problem is not with the people principally. Okay. You know, it's about those who lead a different strata of society. Dela and I are leaders. We must be able to proactively and effectively conscientize the people along the lines of what we believe. Okay. And then if we do that, if we aggregate and tickle that Nigerian spirit, that spirit that we tickled at when Babangida annulled June 12th, and we stood upon it, and he left us a wrong language in socio-political lexicon. Okay. When he stepped aside, you know, eventually Abacha came. Abacha it was difficult for Abacha to leave Nigeria for Medicare because the patriotic fervor and strength of the Nigerian people. Nigeria wanted to move forward. So I do sincerely believe.
Let me go to Dele Momodu finally. We don't have all the time. Now, Dele Momodu, if the opportunity is given now, certainly, and you have to be that one man, for instance, what do you think is the first step to fixing Nigeria, just in a few minutes before we round off?
I mean, I summarized this just last Saturday. There are three key elements a leader has to tackle in Nigeria. The first is what I call the psychology of power. The psychology that once you get to power, all the things you never had, you must now have them. There is also the greed of power. The element of greed is what makes people to steal in arrears and steal in advance what they don't need.
That's right.
You know, so you begin from yourself. What happens in Nigeria is that all your village people, everybody will come and say it's our turn, and so please don't shortchange us. The meaning of that is stealing. There is no other way to look at it. Right. Once you take care of that, and the people can see a leader who is willing to lead by example, trust me, they will follow him. Nigerians are not too difficult to lead, contrary to what people may say. Nigerians are just looking for that man. Once you can tackle that, then you can begin to talk about infrastructure, you can begin to talk about education, you can begin to talk about defense. The key element of leadership is trust. You need a leader who can be trusted, but a leader who says one thing but is doing something else. Okay. A leader who is more preoccupied with building more billionaires. You know, Abiola had a way he put it, and that would be my final submission, is that there is enough in Nigeria for the need of Nigerians, but there is never enough for the greed of a few Nigerians. So once you can tackle those things, trust me, everything will fall in place.
All right.
We have everything already.
All right. Thank you very much, Dele Momodu, for joining us in Africa Today.
Thank you for
and happy independence to you.
Happy independence.
It's all right. All right. Your final word now. What's the way forward for a country?
I do believe that the first thing we must do as a people is to aggregate upon issues that will remove us from poverty to promise. And principally, we must ask government to tackle corruption. Because like Lee Kuan Yew said in his book, Moving from a third world to a first world economy, he said that the chief problem that third world countries have and third world economies have is the prevalence of corruption. When you fix that problem, you're able to fix the nation. And I do sincerely believe that until we collectively prevail on government to fight corruption, until we collectively prevail on government to show passion to fix this country and make this country work, that long, until that is done, our search for a new Nigeria will be like a search for Godot. But I believe that ultimately, if we aggregate in that position where we must ask government to do what is responsible and what is responsive to the challenges before a highly progressive world. Until we ask government to fight corruption and provide the basic necessities of life, which is chiefly security of lives and properties, and ensuring that our economy, our collective till is not fleeced by a few. We will continue in this circuitous rigmarole.
All right, Professor Chris Mokobia, thank you very much for coming on Africa Today.
It's my pleasure.
Thank
to be
you.
here.
We also thank Dr. Dele Momodu for joining us on Africa Today from Ghana. Faced with the challenges of corruption, oil theft, insurgency, unemployment, and poverty, many believe it has been 54 years of a miracle for a nation with the largest economy on the African continent. One lesson for Africa is that independence is not an automatic solution, but it will take a conscious effort by everyone to move any nation from where it used to be to where it ought to be. And that's a show for today, but the conversation continues on Twitter at TVC Africa Today. I am Mike Okwoche saying Happy Independence Day to Nigeria, and always remember, this is Africa. Bye for now.